I'm your host, Sarah Baus, and welcome to Attainable Podcast. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I have been wanting you to be on the podcast for a hot minute. I've been following you for years, so I am so excited that you're here.
That is so sweet of you. I can't believe that there have been friends that we've known for so long through social. That's it. And it's so nice to be able to speak face to face in person or over Zoom calls and just know that we've had a relationship for that long.
Yeah,
and I
the
think that's
internet
the power
is
of social media. Being able
it's
to see somebody else's life and know what they like to do and who they are. And it's so nice to finally sit down and chat with you.
I know. I'm so excited. Someday our paths will cross. When I went to Austin, of course, you were out of town, but next time you come to the East Coast, you know where to find me. And we'll get to meet face to face. But for those who are listening, who don't follow you, don't know who you are, can you give a brief introduction on who you are and what you do?
Sure. My name is Sarah. I own a digital marketing agency in Austin, Texas. I also do freelance photography, mostly doing senior portraits at this time and some brand work. And I also just post on social media for fun on my own. I went to UT Austin to study petroleum engineering. I'm sure we'll get into that because that switch always surprises people. I loved my time in school, and I think that switch from engineering to photography and digital marketing always surprises people. So I'm always happy to share what that story is like.
Yeah, then I, of course, really relate to that as I switched from chemist to creative. And so I know exactly like what you're talking about there. So you've got like a lot of things going on. As far as you have your digital marketing agency where you take clients for social media, would you consider yourself a blogger?
I considered myself a retired blogger.
A retired blogger?
I still post sometimes, but honestly, my clients are first priority right now. So at this moment, their work kind of trumps my own, but I think in the future I'll start to post more again. But it has been a little bit on the back burner until I kind of get a handle of client work, which has been great, but just want to make sure that they're taken care of first.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you have so much going on, I think it's like nice to hear from like an outer perspective, be like, okay, like, how is she handling it all? Okay, well, some things do take priority. If some things do have to take a pause. I am a just active lover of your email list. You have the best email list. Your emails are incredible. So I love them. And yeah, I just love your content. And so you have your clients and then you also do photography. You do a lot, but where did you start? Let's talk a little bit about your college experience.
Yeah. So I applied to UT Austin as my one and only school because I was certain that I was going to do petroleum engineering. And petroleum engineering was the only major I considered because I ended up at a high school that had a program sponsored by oil and gas companies. And it was a great program. I really enjoyed my time there. I loved math and science. And so really wasn't exposed to much outside of that. And I thought to myself, well, like, I like it and like, I'm good at this stuff. So like, why not just do it in college? So ended up at UT. I felt really lucky that I actually found myself there because the engineering program there is great, but there's so many other people, so many other great majors and so many other talented individuals that I got to meet and see what life was like outside of the engineering school. So by my first and second year, I was pretty much like, I can't do it. Like, I don't think I can, I'm not cut out for this. Not because it wasn't interesting, because I still find the work really interesting, but I just couldn't see myself excited walking into work every day in an engineering office, especially the oil and gas, petroleum engineering industry. I just couldn't see myself doing it. It wasn't for me.
Looking at your brand now, I'm like, I could not see that.
It's really crazy to think that that was at one point all I wanted to do. But every summer of college, I decided to take up some experience that I was actually interested and excited about. So ended up at different kinds of design studios and small businesses, and they were really generous with me and gave me lots to do in different areas, and ended up loving the work that I do now, basically interning with tasks in those positions. And that kind of led me towards the direction of marketing. By the end of college, I felt confident enough to apply for marketing jobs, even though I didn't have any of the educational background, but found a job that was perfect for me, ended up at an oil and gas tech company, but I was doing marketing there. Got a full-time job, stayed there for a year, then ended up working for a small business. She was a very large blogger at the time, New York Times bestseller, worked for her for another year, and then decided to start my own business. So that's where we are now, 1 year later. So it's been a few years since out of school, but I can't believe it kind of started where we were, because you said you were a chemist, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, and
Like,
I,
can you
I,
imagine being where you are now?
no, I mean, it's so funny because this is such a dream. Like I'm thinking back and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I was studying chemistry. Like I thought I was going to get the chemistry job, but I could look back and I can almost see like little nuggets of my interest where I was reading entrepreneurial books and I was doing like photo shoots for like random reasons that, I mean, I didn't have a reason. I would just do them and I was exploring and I thought social media was really cool, but I remember thinking like, oh, everybody just thinks this is cool. Everybody thinks this is fun. Everybody like reads these type of things and whatever. And I'm like, no, that's like, those were little like hints like, hey, you have an interest and a talent somewhere else and it's okay to pursue that.
Yeah, I remember feeling really self-conscious during school that all the experiences that I was collecting in college had nothing to do with my degree, because it seemed that everybody else was doing what we were going to school for, and they had a plan and they were doing internships that paid a lot of money, and they were out on the rigs or in the field. And by the end of senior year, like it felt like everybody had already had a job, and I was still the only one left that had a good sense of like what I wanted, but had no idea like if they would take me. Like I felt confident, but like, would they even consider taking somebody who had no educational background? Turns out it ended up being okay, but definitely had to have some persistence there, and some grit.
Yeah. I also applied for like a ton of marketing jobs. And I know like I approached it poorly. I didn't know like what I wanted, but I was like, oh, like it doesn't matter that, it says chemist or like chemistry. All of my jobs before that had been in marketing and I had taken internships and little things to like try and get that experience because I was like, okay, I'm not going to get it in school, but I guess I'm going to finish this degree. So like let me do it. And so I had these odds and ends jobs and I applied for so many jobs and no, everybody was like, I don't know what to do with you. And I know when I graduated, like job searching was a little bit hard. Like I think everybody, like there was quite not a lot out there. So I finally like got down and I was like, okay, I have to apply for chemistry jobs. Like I need a job. Like let me go. I felt almost like I was giving up, but then I got like this really cool job. I was like, oh, like maybe this is it. Like maybe, I was wrong. This is a really good pay and I get a really nice apartment and it feels really cool and everybody says it's really cool. So maybe I really am meant to be a chemist. That lasted a solid 6 months.
Oh, that's funny.
Solid 6 months, 6 months of despair. And then I was like, wow, this is so bad.
Well, it's really brave of you then to like actually do the degree, find the job, get the job, and then realize that that's not what you want to do and just make that pivot. Because I felt really lucky that I found something right out of school. I mean, it took the few years of
Yeah.
interning and basically begging to hire me. I
Yeah.
didn't beg, but like they weren't really looking at the time to hire somebody full time. And I like went out of my way to make sure that I was worth considering. So I went above and beyond on like, they didn't even give me a project. I basically gave myself my own project to get hired that first
Yeah.
time around. And I'm so glad that they accepted my offer, or they accepted me, and I got the offer. But I mean, I think that's so much braver.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you. Yeah, all journeys are different. And I remember finding your account and looking, I mean, I look up to you so much and how you've built your brand and like your multiple businesses. I love how you balance things. And when you were leaving your second full-time job, what did you want to pursue? Were you still like thinking in terms of like your personal brand? Because you've worked with like brands as a content creator on and use your platform like that before, or were you only wanting to take social media clients or pursue photography? What was your like idea when you said, okay, I'm going to do my own thing full time?
I went into my second job knowing that it was going to be my last job before I wanted to be self-employed. When I was really lucky to have some really great mentors my first job. And when I was considering what a perfect job would be for me, in quotation marks, I really didn't consider like pay or like position. I really just wanted the freedom to have my own schedule and do whatever I wanted, whether that meant the time that I spent, how I spent that time, or the kind of client projects or the kind of work that I wanted to do. Because I know that I'm interested in a lot of things. Like, why do I have to like sit in one position, just do one thing, when I could just choose what projects I wanted to be involved in? So I took that second job knowing that this would kind of be that next stepping stone to being self-employed. And I don't remember being asked that in my interview, but my manager at my second job was very supportive of that route for me. And so she did whatever she could to support me at my current position when I was still there, to make sure that I felt confident enough to do what I'm doing now. So that's kind of how I approached that second job. Um, in terms of like client work, I didn't know if it would be my own projects, like doing contract work, kind of part like month to month, or if it'd be like multi-term contracts. I had no idea what that would look like yet, but I did know that it was going to be the time last year to just let go and do my own thing.
So did you like how did you plan monetarily? Because if you're okay with sharing, because I think that's like the biggest hurdle that people get, like try to get over. They're like, how do I do this? How do I know? I mean, a lot of it just comes down to trust in yourself. To say, because if nobody else is handing you a paycheck, you have to trust that you're going to hand yourself a paycheck, and you're going to provide that. But how did you manage that risk for yourself and say, okay, like we got to pay bills?
Before, a few months prior to actually starting the business, I looked at what I was currently making and estimated how many clients and how much time I had, and kind of fit in. I mean, and maybe this is where the analytical side comes in, but like
Yeah.
just how many hours do I have? How much money do I want to make? And how much time am I going to be, or how much am I going to be charging per those hours to actually make what I'm making now? And feeling really confident in knowing that I'm worth that price. So it took a little bit of time to kind of figure out what those numbers were, but I had to do that, got that out of the way, and then needed to figure out what kind of supplies and tools that I would need to fund my business. So if you're working from home as a freelancer, it's really not too bad. I mean, you have your Adobe products and a laptop, and for me, I have my camera equipment, and then you also have like all the things that you need to apply for your business. So like putting in your business application and making sure that you're all good with the state. So I kind of collected all those numbers and then made sure I had enough in my savings account too to cover me for a few months. I mean, I guess you would call it an emergency fund. A
Yeah.
lot of people recommend 6 months. I don't even know if I don't know if I had 6 months in there. I didn't honestly was too scared to like realize and figure that out. But I think if it were somebody else, like I would recommend them to look at their savings account and see if they could cover like basic things like rent and food and whatever else they needed for 6 months, or at least some. in case business doesn't pan out as they intend. But as soon as my job ended, the night of, I went to Costco and bought my MacBook. And the week after that, I put in my business stuff with the state and I had my first client, which was really crazy. I didn't do anything. Like I didn't reach out. They just knew that I had left my job or that I'd parted ways with my job. And I was just like kind of handed these opportunities. So I think if it's also really, if you're in a position where you're stable in a job, it's really helpful to have past contacts to reach out to or just can keep in touch with, because you never know if they'll have work for you in the future, or yeah, they'll want to hire you again, or if they could like recommend friends like and refer you. And that's been happening this past year. I haven't had to ask for any work. It's just been so freely given to me by connections that I had in the past that I had no idea like they would remember me. But I think it goes a long way to make sure that you follow up with people and make sure that they feel heard and that you're responding to them and that you listen to them and their needs, and also just make it an effort to keep in touch.
Yeah. Referrals are so powerful. That's like such like the major way that I get clients as well. And I'm, reaching out, those past contacts are so powerful in giving you that work. So you said that you consider yourself a retired blogger. Do you, I guess, still see yourself as a personal brand?
I joke that I'm a retired blogger. I still post content every now and then, but again, because my clients are first priority right now, just had to put that on the back burner until I figure out how to reprioritize myself again. But yes, like I feel like every business owner is their own personal brand. And I would consider myself my own personal brand too. Like outside of my business, there are things that I like to do. I feel like I have my own style, and people might be drawn to that before they're drawn to what I do as a business. And that's a way that I could gain a potential client or just make a new friend that might have needs as well that I could help in the future as well.
Oh my gosh, that's such a good perspective. Yeah, because I mean, from a audience member, like your brand is so clear. And so I want to talk about that a little bit. I want to talk social. I want to talk your strategy. You are the queen of aesthetic. Like you know how to create like this feeling. And for your brand, like it's very colorful. It's so happy. Like it's just so fun. How do you achieve that for yourself? And then also, how do you achieve that for clients? Because I find that usually those strategies are different.
Okay, first, I have to say that is so, so sweet of you that you say that my brand is very clear, because I feel like for me, as I'm going through personal changes, I'm like, oh my goodness, like my brand is changing too. Like, are other people feeling that as well? Or is it consistent? Am I like, is it cohesive? I have no idea. So it's nice to get feedback that you
Oh
feel
my
like,
gosh.
but
Yes.
I mean, I feel like I'm also growing and changing, and it's okay to allow yourself to go through those personal shifts too. So that, first of all, um, I guess when it comes to my own personal brand, I have a really strong idea of things that I like and things that I gravitate towards. Like I've always been a paper person. And I think if people were to think of Sarah, like they think, oh, she like loves stationery. Yeah,
Stationery and colorful pens. I'm
yeah,
like,
she
that's
loves
it.
stationery and colorful pens. And like that hasn't changed. Like that is still a huge part of things that I love outside of work. And so I think just being aware of the things that you like and allowing yourself to like create content that aligns with those things, but also like letting yourself have fun and grow as you grow up too. And I think it's been nice to have girls like you been with me for so long, because you've seen from college to now like how I've also changed too, and how things have stayed the same. But I think for me, whenever I'm creating content, I'm like, is this something that like I would feel happy seeing? Like what is the feeling that I get like from this piece of content? And I think that's how we've been able to kind of stay aligned and on brand the last few years. How would I feel like looking at this piece of content? For other brands, I think I approach it very differently because I work with a variety, I'm sure like you, a variety of different businesses and different people. And so I feel like I have to have a really good understanding of who they are, what they offer, and how they want to be perceived before I even begin scheduling and posting. Because I think for some brands, like you won't always remember what kind of content they're posting. I mean, that's kind of the goal, but like, what is that feeling? And what's the feeling that I'm getting from this brand? And like, is it somebody that I would want to support? And so I really like to work with brands that have a really strong personality and really strong branding and have a really good understanding of who they are. I actually have been asked this like before, but I haven't really nailed that down as I had said just now. Like I do really love, they might be a little bit different, but I really love working with brands who have a really good understanding of who they are. Because if they know who they are, then they're able to share with me and like be passionate about sharing with me what their content would look like if they had the time to create it. So normally with clients, I sit down with them. It takes about a month of onboarding to make sure that I fully understand. I can study up on things that they had been posting, or if it's a new business, like how they want to be perceived. And we'll go through the whole ebook strategy or whole strategy with an ebook that they can review and I can put together, and we'll iterate from quarter to quarter. But it's a little bit different approach, but just kind of what is that feeling that I get from them?
For just from a tactical perspective, for anybody who's like interested in social media management, for your clients, are you creating graphics or are you also doing photos? Because I think that's almost like two different, I see it like done two different ways, because some people, they only do remote work, or some people are going to the businesses, taking photos of the content and then bringing it back, and like all of their stuff is photos, or some are still remote, but it may be a product business. So they are actually creating the product photos within their own studio, their home, or that kind of stuff. What kind of work do you do?
It really depends on the business's needs and what will be best for them, because I find that some businesses, graphic design doesn't work for them, or some others, it's really great for them. So it takes a bit of testing to see what is going to be best and what resonates with their audience. But I'm finding that a lot of the businesses that I work with are very like photo heavy, because a lot of them are product-based businesses. So we actually want to see things. And a lot of them are doing reels right now because they're really young brands, and reels is the fastest way to grow right now. And because it's being pushed out to the Instagram audience. But yeah, again, it really depends on the business. My hope is that I am doing work that I want to do, and I'm giving people work that they are passionate about too. So even though I started this with the idea that like I would do everything, I can't be that person anymore because I just have so many things going on, and I'm really lucky to be in that position. But I really want to do work that I feel like I'm good at. And I can't say that that's graphic design. Like I might have an eye for it, but I know that there'd be somebody else that would be more talented and more skilled. So I'd rather give them the work, make sure that they're doing what they want to do. And if somebody's really great at video, I'd rather have them do video instead of me. And then for me, I know that I am kind of that liaison between my work and somebody else's brand. And so I know that my strength is in connecting with these business owners, like knowing what they want, doing the strategy, and also like looking at the numbers. I love the reporting.
Yeah, you talked before about like how much you love analytics, and I love when you like do a deep dive in how you do analytics. It's so interesting. It's just fun to nerd out for, I mean, like people like me. How do you plan out your content? I see you as a very, again, analytical person. How do you plan everything out?
Would this be for my own stuff or for other clients?
Let's start with
different.
let's start with your clients, and then we'll go to your own.
Okay, for clients, my strategy with planning out content is I do it in kind of 2-week sprints. So I plan out 2 weeks of content before it's due. And then, or sorry, I plan out 2 weeks of content and then I give it to them about a week in advance before. And then they check everything through, make sure that things look good. And then I'll put them all on auto, or if I can't do it on auto, then I'll just make sure it's scheduled for the day. And then either myself or then somebody else who's working with me will make sure to get it posted during those days. But as far as like setting up what the content actually looks like, that's why I really want to make sure that I have a month to really learn their business, make sure that I really have a good understanding of their brand, and we'll come up with our content themes beforehand so that we are aligned on those things. And I'm planning out content in those kind of buckets that I like to call them. So that's how it goes for clients. For myself, at this point, there's not really a set strategy just because I haven't been as active as I had been in the past. But normally how it works is if I have any campaigns that I'm working with other brands, say they're sponsoring posts or we're working on different projects together and just like developing relationships, I'll make sure to mark those dates on my calendar first so that they're prioritized and I get that content first. And then everything else I fill in with things that I feel like are things that I'm excited to post about and like want to do. I would say for both of the scheduling for clients and myself to just not overthink it. Social is such a small, I mean, it can be a really large aspect of somebody's business, but it's in the grand scheme of things, it's a very small aspect of somebody's business. It's just another part of the marketing funnel. And so for me, I like to think of social as the way to get to somebody's inbox. And then once you get into somebody's inbox, like then they want to open them and develop a relationship with you and hopefully drive sales. Like that is my main goal when working with businesses. Like we want to create a community and an engaged audience, but like at the end of the day, like we're here to make money. And if I'm not helping other businesses do that, then I feel like I'm not doing my job right. So I am very wary about working with businesses that just want to grow really quickly, because that is really not the point of having a social media presence. It's to be able to create engaged audience, then convert them into somebody that would be willing to pay for their products and services, and then share it with their friends and hopefully, repeat that cycle over and over again.
With your job, do you feel pressure to be active like all the time?
I mean, heck no. For myself, I mean, I before we got on this call, I told you that I took a week off basically. And I do that pretty often actually, because I get overwhelmed pretty easily with social. I think I'm like a lot of girls in their 20s, we're really easily influenced by the things that we see. Yeah. And when I find myself like getting anxious or angry or not as confident as I normally would be, I can usually pin it back towards something that I saw, or because I've been scrolling a lot on social and I'm either comparing myself to somebody else, or I feel like I should be doing stuff that I wouldn't normally be doing, like on a regular day. Like it all goes back to comparison. I feel like I'm comparing myself to other people. And so the easiest way to take that away for me is to just go off of it and just really prioritize the personal relationships and the connections that I have, and just really ground myself in remembering like why I loved social media to begin with. It's not to compare people or compare myself to other people, or push anything. It's to make connections like the one that we have here. That my clients like to tell me I'm very good at boundaries. And I think when working with new clients, it's really important to know what your boundaries are, in terms of like how you communicate, when you communicate, like what would you like your holidays to be like, things like that, and just let them know in advance before you take off, because it's just always better to over communicate with these business owners than to just leave them hanging and have them in the dark about like, hey, like, are you going to get that up, or like, are you taking off? Like, I don't want them to question. I want them to know that I have already thought of it beforehand, so that everything is covered and they don't have to worry. So even for Christmas, like I Christmas break, because I now manage my own schedule, like I wanted at least a week off. So I
Mhm.
let them know in like early November, hey, I'm taking all this on Thanksgiving off. I'm also taking all this on Christmas off. And then I will be on my laptop like to check messages every now and then, but I'm not going to be on my regular work schedule, blah, blah, blah. And that, like, communicating that early and then also reminding them closer to the date is really helpful so they don't have to guess.
Yeah.
But that allows me to like really take a breather and take off.
Yeah. And people are so, I don't know. I think I've been surprised, and then other people are surprised when, like, how okay people are with boundaries. Like, if you're very clear, people aren't, the only time people aren't okay is like when you're not clear. But when you're super clear, I've never had anybody have a poor reaction. If I'm like, hey,
Yeah.
here's what's, here's when I'm off, like, being almost, it almost feels like blunt because you want to be polite and you want to like skate around the subject. But I'm like, okay, no, like, we want to be clear. Like, here's when we're taking off. Here's what to expect, all those type of things. And I always get met back with, thank you so much. This was really clear. This was very easy. Love how you respect your boundaries. We respect ours as well. We carry that value, all those type of things. I always get like a very positive reaction to that. And I feel like,
I am always, yeah, I'm surprised too. I think because I assume that other people are going to react poorly, but I've also had that same reaction where, I mean, I try to work with nice people. That's
yeah,
that's
that's
the
true.
first thing. That's the first thing. But I think when you respect your boundaries, other people, like, you kind of train other people to respect them too.
Yeah.
And I've had clients in the past where like I wasn't clear on my boundaries because I didn't really know what they were. And so other people kept crossing my boundaries because I finally like started to learn like, oh, actually, I don't want to respond after 7 p.m. on a Monday night. Like, I don't want to be working past that time. So, I think learning what those boundaries are early on and communicating them and sticking with them. I think that's the really hard one because especially when you're working for yourself, you might tend to overwork, not because like you don't,
Oh,
because you
it's
enjoy working.
so
So,
easy to
mhm,
overwork yourself.
yeah, but it's really easy to get burned out too. And so even if I know that I'm working past a certain hour that I said like that I wouldn't, I try not to let clients know that because otherwise they will start like crossing that boundary. So I think just being really clear on what those are and sticking to them is really important so that that doesn't happen where they are crossing those boundaries.
Yeah, no, I agree. If I'm like, okay, maybe we'll schedule this email to go out so they don't know that I am working.
Oh,
And
I'm like the queen of that. Like
yeah,
Sunday is like usually my day to relax, but if I'm finding that my inbox gets like filled, I'm like, okay, time to start scheduling emails to go out Tuesday morning or whatever time that I want them to go out that I
yeah,
want them
life
to
hack.
receive that yes, please
Yeah,
schedule emails.
yes. What is your advice to somebody who is interested in entering the digital media space, especially those who are wanting to enter it like as an entrepreneur?
Oh, goodness. I can only speak from experience and the work that I've done with clients. But for me, I would say the best advice that I have is to gain experiences in as many industries as you can and to work with a variety of business owners. I recall hearing that people who work in agencies don't like their jobs because you get punished for being efficient. But I would say that it can be a really great place to learn because you're put into positions where you have to learn about different businesses quickly. So whether you're at an agency now or you're not in one yet or don't even intend to be, I would say if you have an opportunity to learn from as many business owners as possible and just get really curious about who they are, what they offer, and like what kind of content would best serve them, then I think you have a really great career ahead of you in digital marketing. Again, this is just in terms of marketing that I do. There are just so many other things that you could do digital marketing though. So before Sarah and I were chatting about how books are a really great resource to learn. I'd say books and courses are also a great learning opportunity, but if you don't have access to those things, or you kind of don't know where to start, I'm sure Sarah has some really great
Oh yeah, we've
recommendations.
done
Sarah has some really,
several episodes where I've talked about my favorite books for sure.
yes. So Sarah probably has some really great recommendations. So you can DM her and she can recommend some your way. But I also like the best experience you can have is your own. And you never know what kind of things that you'll run into, being able to experiment on your own and learn from your own lessons. So make sure to find clients and get involved with projects where they're going to be okay with you experimenting and testing.
Yeah, never be afraid to like try and experiment. And even if it's like experimenting with your own media, or, I've seen people do like rebrands when nobody asked them to, but they just want something to practice and give a portfolio piece, which I always love. Thank you so much for sharing your story and being on and sharing your strategies and being willing to share your knowledge. If people want to follow you, where can they find you?
Yes. So my personal profile is Sarah_the Bella. The Bella comes from thebellainsider.com, which is a personal blog I started in high school, but now it's a place where I post content to help young women in their 20s get adulting. And you can also find me at Sarah Wong Photo, that features all my photography work, and then Sarah Wong Media as well. That is currently rebranding, so stay tuned for all the content that will be posted in the future there.
That's going to be great. I'm so excited. Guys, if you enjoyed this episode, please go share it on your Instagram and tag us at Attainable Podcast, where you should also be following us if you're not already. And again, if you enjoyed the show, go ahead and follow us on Spotify and leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, because we're all friends here and that's the nice thing to do. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope that this was helpful, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.